On this episode, we talk to the Mayor of Columbus, Mr. Jim Lienhoop. What's up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Hashtag Celebrate Columbus Show. My name is Josh Burnett, and as you can see, we've got a special guest with us today. I'm really excited to have him on the show. We've been trying to get this together for a little while, and as you might know, he's a very busy guy serving our community. I'm really excited to introduce you. For the two people in Columbus who don't know who you are, what's your name and what do you do here in this community?
I'm Jim Lienhoop, and I'm the Mayor of Columbus. You'd asked a little bit earlier about just some background. I started as mayor January 1 of this year, January 1, 2016. After having lived here for most of my life, I was born here in Columbus, went to St. Peter's grade school, graduated from Columbus High School, sort of date myself a little bit, went to Indiana University in Bloomington, and then spent about 10 years around the state of Indiana working for a couple of CPA firms. Came back to Columbus in 1986, so not quite 30 years ago at this point, and it's been a good run. I mean, we had a CPA business that I ran on Washington Street for about that length of time, and during that time we raised a couple kids. My wife Pam and I have two children. Our son John's in his early 30s. Libby is 26, and we're just, it was a good place to bring up your family, and that was part of the reason that we came back. I told folks from time to time that, I remember back when I was in high school telling my father that I couldn't wait to leave Columbus. It was a small town, there wasn't much going on, and he'd typically say something like, don't be so harsh. I mean, Columbus is a pretty nice place, and you'll figure that out. And sure enough, about the time I was 30, when our son came along, began to realize that it would be pretty neat to get back home and give my kids the same kind of childhood or similar kind of childhood to what I had. And so, yeah, they came back here. They went through St. Peter's. Both kids actually had the same first grade teacher I had.
Wow.
Dolores Strudelmeyer. So if she's out there anywhere, hello to Miss Strudelmeyer. But really, it was a good time. I think they had a good childhood and a great education. So all that sort of, like I say, we're in the CPA business for about 30 years, and I had the opportunity to take an early retirement from that back in 2015 and get ready to run for mayor, and so here we are.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm really excited to have Mayor Lienhoop on the show. Columbus, you guys have seen how crazy things have been in the political world of our nation this year, and I just want you to know, first of all, I didn't live here last year. Like you, Mr. Lienhoop, I actually went out and was trying to, do something, advance my career in a different community. Mm-hmm. And we moved back to Columbus because my wife's health was not so good, and I didn't get the opportunity to vote for anyone. But I do appreciate you. And one of the things I want you to know, Columbus, is that, yeah, things are crazy in the world, but Columbus is a really special place. And I believe that we need to get behind our public officials, the elected people in our community. It's our way of supporting them and helping Columbus continue to be the great community that it is.
Well, thank you.
I'm really excited about the questions that we have today. These are all from Columbus. None of these are from me. These are all from our people in Columbus. So let's get into the show.
Okay.
Mr. Lienhoop, what do you love about Columbus?
Well, that's a wide open question,
right,
and there's a lot of different answers, but I would really have to start with the people who live here. One of the things that I've found in the 10 months or so that I've served as mayor is that when I ask folks for help, I rarely, as does anybody say, no, they don't have time or they're not interested. We typically are able to find volunteers for whatever the task is, whether it's come together and just give us some thoughts, help us with a little bit of a vision for our community, or to serve on a board or commission. So people are first and foremost, and that's really something to enjoy about Columbus. I think as far as the city itself and the built environment, I mean, it's pretty impressive. I mean, and again, you can look at the shiny buildings, and yeah, they're very attractive, and they do add a lot to the quality of life here. But if you spend a little time inside, again, you see how the people use them and the effects that those buildings or that design will have on your lives. And so, I love being able to have that example to show to little kids, that this is how we do it here. I mean, this is what we believe to be important, and we strive for excellence and superior design, and here's why and the effect that it has on us. So yeah, there's a lot to love about Columbus.
And I thought you said earlier, you talked about being able to raise a family here. Mm-hmm. It's such a special place. We have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and we couldn't think of another community where we'd want to raise our children. This is where we grew up, and what was that like? Your experience, raising children here?
Well, there's a multitude of activities, for the kids to participate in. I mean, they're literally never a dull moment, and that's sort of going to be true with a 2-year-old or 4-year-old. But you also know that there are plenty of places that they can go where they'll interact with other good kids. One of the things that was important to us as our kids grew was the quality of the friendships that they made, and the quality of the friends that they had. And I felt like here in Columbus we had a really good group, for them to choose from. I think too that we've got really good leaders in our faith-based community and in the public schools, particularly among some of the coaches. I mean, our kids were very active in athletics, so that was sort of the segment of the public school system that we engaged with. But I hear something similar about those students who end up in band or who end up in one of the other extracurricular activities, is that there's no shortage of adults who are prepared to step up and provide leadership and a good example, for the young ones. So yeah, it's again, there's a lot to love, in Columbus, and certainly the leadership that we're able to provide is a big part of that.
So what are a few things that you're most proud of in your first year as mayor?
Well, we came in with a few objectives, and the first one was to try to re-engage with city employees. Felt like we needed to reestablish some trust there, and our initial directive was simply to do good and have fun. I mean, do good work, enjoy what you're doing. It's easier to come to work every day if you like the work you do and if you like the people you work with. And so we wanted to make sure that folks understood that we want them to enjoy their job. We expect them to work hard, but have fun. I mean, just enjoy what you're doing. And I feel like we've been able to accomplish that. I mean, certainly most of the feedback that I get, is very positive, and I feel like we've been able to reestablish Columbus as a great employer. Which, if you're a citizen of Columbus, what you want, service with a smile, well, you need to have happy, empowered employees, to be able to provide that. And so that was sort of task one. Task two for us was to begin to engage with people and places outside of Columbus. I mean, we say from time to time that the city of Columbus is not an island, and so we need to have working relationships or working partnerships with other entities. And so, I spent a fair amount of time up in Indianapolis at the State House. I had an opportunity to meet with Governor Pence several times before he got a little distracted here, the last few months.
Right.
But I've also had a chance to meet with some of the leaders in the legislature, not just our local guys, Greg Walker and Milo Smith, but some of the leadership up there, and talk to them a little bit about Columbus. Mm-hmm. Because we've got some issues here that are a little bigger than we'll be able to solve on our own. We'll probably get to those a little later in the program. But I wanted to be able to establish that Columbus has got the right attitude when it comes to partnering with others. We're willing to give and expect something out of the partnership as well. But we're more than willing to participate and add a little more than what we get in return. And I think the third thing that we were interested in is, some projects that matter. I mean, in trying to either resuscitate or pull across the goal line, however you want to phrase it, some of the projects that had been ongoing for a while. The next one you'll see is out here at State Street. We will add some pedestrian and bicycle lanes to the north and south sides of the State Street Bridge. And there's really two or three things going on there. One is to provide a little bit of identity for the East Columbus neighborhood. The people who live out there, they consider that to be their neighborhood, and I think we all feel a little better when we can take a little pride, in not only just the community or the city, but the area within that where we live. So along that line, over the last several years, there have been improvements to State Street, to Indiana Avenue, and a couple of the other intersections there. This will be an addition to that. Sort of as another part of that is that we've had some economic success here in downtown Columbus, and we want to try to get that to grow eastward. And so, there's the project has several different phases, and they probably aren't going to come together in some kind of linear fashion. We'll hop around a little bit, but the whole notion will be to take that economic activity that we've got and to push, pull, drag it, east and then down State Street to points further east. And like I say, the bridge will be the first thing you'll see. That'll be the first visual depiction of that. And again, that was a project that had gotten a little stalled, and so we just reconvened the stakeholders out in that area and let them run with the ball. And it by the time this I think this airs, you should have already seen some activity out there. Though it'll be coordinated with NDOT. They're going to do some repaving or some overlay or something. So it really should make a big difference in the area. So again, in terms of what we've tried to do is just re-engage with employees, re-engage with our neighbors, and then get some projects moving along that people will appreciate.
What are a few things in your long-term vision that you would like to see accomplished in Columbus?
Well, in terms of projects or programs, the two that I think are most pressing are to deal with the railroad situation. We spent a fair amount of time the last several months trying to explain to everybody what's coming, in terms of increased railroad traffic, more trains a day, longer trains. There'll be parts where they're faster. The trains will move more quickly, but because of the curves that are present to enter and exit Columbus, we anticipate that the train will slow down, and so it'll be moving out in the countryside. It may be moving 40 miles an hour, a little better. Through town, 15. Is what we've been told, and I think that's going to create some traffic issues for us, and so we want to be able to have some solutions. Solution may be overstating it a little bit. Maybe we'll have an effective response. But again, in terms of partnerships, we're going to have to work with the Indiana Department of Transportation. We'll have to work with the railroad and the Federal Railroad Administration. And so I'm hopeful that we can get something together quickly, because I think the railroad traffic is going to come faster than our response. The second thing that we deal with, or I get concerned about, is the drug issue that we have in our community. And you can see it in a number of different areas. We have too many children who are on free and reduced lunch. I think part of that is due to some drug issues or drug-related issues that their parents have. I think we've got a little higher than what we want. Well, obviously higher than what we want. Crime rate. In terms of property crime, our statistics are a little bit higher than the national average. Columbus is a safe place as far as your person is concerned,
right.
But your stuff, not so much so. And I think a lot of that's got to do with the drug activity. And then you can't get away from the damaged lives. The people who just don't have the experience that they should, because somewhere along the line they got fouled up with drugs. And I think too there needs to be a little bit of an understanding that there's more going on here than just a choice. It may first appear that way, but I think many of these people have developed some form of an illness. And I may not be saying this quite right, but if you've got a bacterial infection or a problem with your heart, we got this great big building out there on 17th Street, staffed full of people who will help you. And I think we're going to need to do something along that line for those folks who fallen prey to drug addiction. And trying to formulate that and try to figure out what that response is going to be and how that's going to work, that's a big challenge, because as best I can tell, there isn't a community in the United States that's figured it out yet. Because if it was one, we'd go there, copy it, bring it back here.
Right.
But but that's going to be our challenge, and we want to try to be able to provide some kind of help for those kind of folks, because in the end, I think that's going to help our community. I mean, we will benefit from that. There's a series of other projects around town, but those are the two that hit me most.
Mayor Lienhoop, this is a fun question. How can we best support you?
There are several things that come to mind, but one of the primary attributes that we're trying to have for Columbus, or we try to celebrate for Columbus, is to be welcoming. And we've got a number of folks in this town who are new to the town. I mean, if you just take a look at the population statistics, I mean, we've grown considerably, say 10,000 in the last 10 years. I mean, and don't hold me to the numbers, but it's a big number, and these are people who are new to Columbus, and maybe new to Indiana, maybe new to the United States. And part of what we want to do is to make them feel welcome here. And I think that happens in large ways and small ways. And some of the small ways are interactions that may just be out at the Walmart parking lot, or the Target parking lot, or maybe at schools or at work. And sometimes it's just a willingness to interact, just to engage that person and tell them to have a good day, or make them see if there's anything you can do to help. But just a willingness to step forward and show a little bit of friendship to somebody who you've clearly not met before, so that they have that welcoming, or see the welcoming attitude that we've got. And you might just want to pretend for a second that the arrow's pointing in the other direction, that now you're in a new place. You're someplace that you've not been for 40 years, like say I've been here for that long, but you're new to the area. And so how would you like to be received? How would you like to be encountered in a public place? So that would be number one, just to be willing to engage, those people you see in daily life. Number two would be to continue to, volunteer. There are plenty of volunteer opportunities, some through the city, others maybe through your church. Or at school, and be willing to step up and provide a little bit of leadership, because this community really thrives when people hold up their hand, or they stand up and say, I'm willing to do a little bit more than the absolute minimum.
I think the perfect way to kind of respond to what you said, especially when making Columbus a more welcoming community, is a quote that I really like to live by, and I've been thinking a lot about this year. It was said by J. Irwin Miller, one of the most influential men in our city's history. He said, "The most important service to others is service to those who are not like yourself."
Yeah, says it well.
And I think you said it so well, to put yourself in another person's shoes. If we were in another community, in another state or country, how would we want to be treated? And it's that simple thing that continue to make Columbus a great place to live and help other people enjoy what we've experienced all of our lives.
Yeah, it's not all that complicated. I mean, it might just be eye contact. It's just a way to engage people, acknowledge that they're there, and if they, you can take it further if you wish, but again, it's just to have that welcoming attitude to all that you meet.
So a question that we got from the community was, how has being a public figure changed your perspective on Columbus and its people?
I don't really think it's changed much. I think more than anything, it's confirmed that Columbus has got we're very fortunate. We've got a good group here. And again, I get back to the willingness to volunteer, the willingness to do a little more than just the minimum that's required, a willingness to lead, whether it's, like I said earlier, at your church or at your school, or through some governmental activity that we might sponsor. And my service in serving the public has just brought that home, I guess, even more so, that there are many places where we ask for help from the community. We ask for volunteers, and we rarely get turned down. So that's very heartening. I've really been happy about that kind of response from our citizenry. So yeah, hasn't changed anything, just made it more so.
Yeah, and I was really humbled for this to be asked to both of us. Just coming back to Columbus this year and the opportunities that have presented itself through Celebrate Columbus, I've just gotten to meet a lot of amazing people that make this the place that it is, and it's the place that we want to raise our family and continue to celebrate.
Right.
Because when you said earlier, you move away and you're kind of like, oh, I want to move away from Columbus and kind of spread your wings, and then you find out the grass really isn't greener.
No.
It doesn't get much better than Columbus, and so through Celebrate Columbus, I've just gotten to meet some amazing people that make Columbus the place that it is today.
Yeah.
You've probably spent good money on your camera. You see it as an investment in yourself. It's an awesome camera, but do you know how to use it? Do you know what the settings on the dial are? Do you know how to light and compose your shot? How do you set the aperture or shutter speed? We are here to help get you out of auto mode and utilizing your camera's full potential. If you want to learn to really use your camera, do yourself a favor and take the photography class at Tri-State Artisans. Sign up today at tsartisans.com.
Well, Mayor Lienhoop, I want to thank you so much for being on the #Celebrate Columbus show. Really special to have this opportunity. Before we go, though, you've been peppered with a lot of questions, and you get asked questions all the time. But every episode, we like to have a question of the day, and so you get a chance to ask Columbus one question. What would you like to ask them?
One of the things that we've thought about is, say, holiday traditions. And a sort of a return to Columbus kind of tradition. And would there be a way for us to identify either an event or a time of the year or some other way to encourage those who may have grown up here and moved away, to come back and maybe see old friends. I mean, a little bit like a reunion, if you want to use that word. But I think about my own experience where I left for about 10 years and then was able to get back. Maybe I was predisposed to do that, and maybe you were too. But maybe there's some folks out there who just need a little nudge, and so how can we best showcase how this community is growing, the opportunities that we have here, that the grass is greener here than wherever you are. And so I would ask for a little bit of help, from the community in trying to help plan something along that line. I mean, and just to give you a bit of a starter, on December 3rd, we'll have our Festival of Lights parade. And so is that the kind of an event that people might be interested in using for this kind of vehicle, to bring folks back to Columbus? And that's just an idea, and if we can take that somewhere, I think that'd be really worthwhile, and the city could get behind that and sponsor something a little bit bigger, if you will. So a little bit of help on that would be welcome.
Awesome. So what kind of holiday tradition could we have that would bring people back to Columbus and really be able to celebrate it together? Again, Mayor Lienhoop, thank you for being on the show.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you, Columbus, for watching. You keep asking questions, and we'll keep celebrating Columbus together.